Yay, as I tell kids, and kids say to me often, it's been a long week and we're going to jump into some of that, but we are so excited and appreciate you taking the time on your Friday to join us for what we hope will be some enriching information, some tools that you can use to carry us out through this year. So before we get started, welcome to PEACE, the Pennsylvania Education, Empowerment, and Achievement Center. We're going to introduce everybody that's joining us today. My name is Alexis Musgrove, and I'm one of the co-founders.
Good day. My name is Serene High. I am the co-founder as well.
Our co-host. Oh, your co-host, we're on mute. Co-host, you can unmute yourself.
Hello, my name is Kasai High. I'm a junior computer science student attending Hampton University.
Hi, I'm Kendall Musgrove. I go to middle school and I'm in the 8th grade.
Thank you, ladies, for that. So just quickly, for those of you that may not be familiar with PEACE, PEACE is the acronym. It's Pe2ac, and that stands for the Pennsylvania Education, Empowerment, and Achievement Center. And in short, really, we are a youth nonprofit organization servicing kids from grades K, we say, to college, and even beyond, but K to college in the Philadelphia and surrounding areas. And really, our goal is to inspire kids to be excited about education, empower them to want to use the tools and go after tools to be successful, but then also equip them with the tools to be successful. So we partner with different experts in various of the quality of life areas. So, college, employment, community, self-respect, leadership and development. And we just provide programs, push in or pull out programs to students in those areas. So we really are about making kids excited about being successful. Our tagline is Dare to Educate, Inspire, and Dream. And it is our hope that what we do will inspire students and inspire youth to do that, inspire them to dream. So that is sort of what our organization is about. We do a number of events throughout the year. We typically, this year has been very different for all of us, 2020. We typically do an annual event, a youth empowerment, a brunch. It was a women and girls empowerment. We were set last July when we have our annual events to do a youth summit, but that times with the pandemic had to change that. So in light of the times, we were doing something different. And this is our first lecture series. So we appreciate you taking the time to join us. For those of you that do not know us, welcome, this is who we are. And for those of you that have been with us over the last 8 years, we've been founded in 2013. We thank you for your support and coming back. And with that, I'll turn it over to my co-founder, Mrs. High, who will explain why we're here today.
Good day, everyone. Thank you so very much for joining us today. We are so very grateful that you have taken just a small part of your day to share with us and to learn about what's going on in the world. And currently, as you know, we are in a pandemic. And a part of our PEACE, part of our organization, we have an arm that deals specifically with health from all aspects. So we will be hosting a lecture series in 2021, utilizing the Zoom platform to share information about what's going on presently in the world. We'll identify and discuss current events. We'll feature a diverse range of lectures and conversations by experts, scholars, and artists, and things of that nature, something that's very exciting and engaging to our youth. We are unapologetically youth-oriented. We are a nonprofit that focuses on youth and adolescents, as Alexis stated, between the ages of first grade all the way through college. So our population is specific to, and our topics will be geared towards youth and adolescents and young adults. And so we are very, very proud to utilize this first quarter to promote our topics and present to you all events in this online platform, allowing for the impact to reach community members all around the world. We're very, very grateful once again for the encounter today. And I'd like to turn today's focus over to Kasai and Kendall. They are our co-hosts for today, so I'd like to welcome them. Kasai and Kendall.
Hello, everyone. I would like to welcome and introduce Dr. Kevin London, a Pennsylvania licensed psychologist who has been providing counseling and psychological services to children and adults in Baltimore, Maryland, Washington, D.C., and Philadelphia, Pennsylvania for the past 20 years. He is also a clinical director at Greater Philadelphia Health Action, director of operations of a newly started private practice, and adjunct instructor in Immaculata's University Psychology Doctorate Program.
He brings to us a wealth of knowledge and experience on these topics. Dr. London, welcome.
You're on mute, Dr. London, can't hear you.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for that wonderful introduction, Kendall and Kasai. Before we start today, I certainly want to speak to simply how much gratitude I have for being here today. This type of organization is very much needed. When I was invited to participate today, I immediately accepted the offer. These issues are on the top of my list. I grew up in the 80s, and the song that was very popular for me was "I Believe That Children Are the Future." That was a graduation song that was very popular when I was coming up, and it brought me to tears. But it's certainly true, and I'm dedicated to supporting the development of children, youth, young adults, as well as adults, because certainly children are our future. With that being said, I would like to thank Peace for again inviting me here today, as I hope to really get as much information, knowledge, and passion from doing this as you all get. This is a interactive experience. I always seek out opportunities to listen and learn, all the while I am conveying information myself. So we're gonna get started, and Mrs. Hai, can you move forward to the first slide? So as we get started today, it is important to recognize that we have, although there is a significant amount of diversity on this call, there is a significant amount of shared identities. Not only do we all have shared identities, these identities are interconnected. I want to acknowledge these identities because many of them are marginalized, while some of them are put to the forefront. And it's important that every identity is acknowledged. So today, we will be speaking to young adults, to older adults, senior citizens, individuals who identify as brothers, sisters, sons, daughters, mothers, children, youth. We will also be speaking to persons of color, speaking to and about persons of color. Here are some examples: Black, Latin, Latinx, Asian, and Indian. We will certainly be speaking about non-persons of color, oftentimes referred to as white. We will be speaking to and about same-sex attracted individuals, as well as opposite-sex attracted individuals, as well as individuals who are attracted to both sexes. We will be speaking to and about individuals who are born here in America, as well as individuals who are not born in America, oftentimes referred to as immigrants. We'll also be speaking to this notion of abilities, as well as disabilities or challenges. I identify myself as the cis male, heterosexual male. My preferred pronouns are he and they. And with that being said, Mrs. Hyde, can you forward to the second slide, please? Thank you. So child development. Child development is one of the more complicated aspects of personality development and personal development. As you can see, there are ages that are identified: 3 to 5, 5 to 13, 13 to 21. There are associated developmental tasks that are really prominent during these age ranges, and successful completion of these tasks lead to accomplishment or development of certain skills. We refer to those as achieving certain developmental milestones. These are not all inclusive. These are just general ages where these developmental tasks are thought to be achieved. Nevertheless, there is a great amount of variability that comes from the fact that individuals come from different racial, cultural backgrounds, and have various types of developmental experiences. But this is a very important lens, one of the lenses that we will be looking at, looking through today, because the topic certainly is child, children, and adolescent development. So one of the first developmental tasks that individuals have to face comes at around the age of between 3 and 5, and where children learn about new concepts in school through social interactions. Games and imagination are recognized as a means through which children learn about themselves and their social world. They like to try out new things and learn to cooperate with others to achieve common goals. They assert themselves more frequently and begin to develop a sense of purposefulness. Children at this age like to act out in various family scenes and roles, such as teachers, police officers, doctors, nurses, things that they commonly see on TV. They might make up stories with toys to demonstrate what they believe is the adult world, and they also begin to explore their environment and ask a lot of why questions. These children progress through these developmental milestones, they begin to perform more tasks. They also learn the importance of social approval. They begin to realize that some of the things that they want to do may not be approved by others. It's essential for caregivers to encourage and guide their children to explore within certain limits. Over-controlling and overly strict caregivers who discourage their children from exploring new things may cause their children to develop a sense of shame or guilt. These children may see themselves as a nuisance to others, and as a result, they take the role of followers. This may have a negative impact on their social life and may also hinder their creativity. Nevertheless, success at this phase of development will lead to the virtue of purpose. It is demonstrated by how children make decisions, come up with new ideas, as well as work and play with others. The next stage of adolescent development is referred to as industry versus inferiority. This stage usually begins around the elementary school years, and children become much more competitive. They want to do things that their peers can do. They learn to read, write, do math, explore science concepts, play sports. Teachers also play a very significant role in children's lives during this time and moving forward, as they are the ones who teach our children. Children begin to expand their social networks as well. They get to know their abilities, They get to know abilities of other people around them, their peers, and they might begin to start to compare themselves to their peers as they feel the need to validate their sense of competence. They might even feel proud and confident when they can do things as well or even better than their peers. Unfortunately, if they don't measure up, they might feel inferior. So according to this stage, children develop the virtue of competence by resolving the crisis of industry versus inferiority. This virtue is demonstrated or easily seen by teenagers making things, getting results, applying themselves, doing well in exams, and even taking appropriate risks. All of these behaviors come from a sense of competence and the internal belief that I can. Finally, for specifically for children and adolescents, the next developmental tasks is around identity versus role confusion. In this stage, um, there's a shift from adolescence going into young adulthood. It is also the turning point where what the person has come to be meets the person that society expects one to be. At this point, young people experience a lot of changes in their bodies. They begin to contemplate on the role they want to play in the world. They might also examine existential questions, such as who am I and what do I want to be? What is my purpose in life? They also try to develop their occupational and sexual identities by exploring different possibilities. Young people who succeed at this stage develop a strong sense of identity when they come across challenges and problems. They can commit their principles, they can apply their ideals and beliefs to solutions to the problems that they face. Those who fail to establish their own identity tend to be confused about themselves and about their future. They may end up even following other people's ideas and the paths of other people. It is suggested that young people who succeed at resolving the crisis at this stage develop the virtue of fidelity. Fidelity is characterized by the sense of self-esteem, self-confidence that are certainly required to associate freely with people and beliefs on the basis of one's own value, loyalty, and integrity. Next slide, please. Now we're gears to looking at the current social context, and specifically, there are two lens that we need to look at. Certainly, COVID-19 is one of them, and COVID-19 has changed our worlds in numerous ways, but the initial way that I want to look at this is the shift that's taking place in terms of social location. Prior to COVID-19, we were all free to come and go as we wanted to without any restriction. We were free to congregate and play at our will. We were free to go into buildings without concern for the safety of a doorknob, a desk. Those around us were approached, we would embrace. And now when we are privileged in many ways to be out and be social and doing things, we have to wear masks and greet each other at a distance. And so these changes are seen certainly related to our schools, to our homes, and certainly our larger community. Due to decades of underinvestment, children who come from backgrounds such as North Philadelphia, South Philadelphia, and other parts of the city are more likely to attend schools that have fewer economic resources and less technology to support remote instruction. Recent data has found that 25% of Black youth connected with teachers less than once a week. That is in large contrast to the frequency of connection with a teacher prior to the COVID-19 epidemic, significantly less. So if we think about the impact of connecting with a teacher relative to one's child development in terms of cognitive development, emotional development, and social development, having interactions one day a week is going to certainly have an impact on child's development. In addition, it's been found that students are expected to lose pre-pandemic gains in reading as well as math. To be clear, what this suggests is that learning that has been achieved in reading and math prior to the pandemic has been lost as a result of a social shift as a result of the pandemic. And it remains to be seen if these gains will be recouped. Relative to home and community, there is data to show that parents of color disproportionately represent essential workers for our nation's essential workforce and are unable to work from home and less able to provide parental academic oversight. This might be one of the reasons why these gains in reading, math, and other subjects are being lost due to a lack of parental oversight while children have shifted to a remote learning environment. Lastly, pre-existing disparities in access to adequate internet places Black and other children of color at greater disadvantages during this transition to a remote learning environment. Ms. Hyde, can you transition to the next slide, please? Thank you. With that being said, it is clear that race matters. And race matters is a term that's been around for a long time, and I think we are at a time where we can soundly say that it's really not race that matters, it's actually racism that matters. There's a specific type of structure of racism that has a particular detrimental effect for several reasons, and one of the reasons is that it's very hard to believe that this type of racism exists. It's kind of hard to pin down. And this type of racism is referred to as structural racism, and it speaks to the systems, the policies, and the relationships that are set up. And these systems, policies, and relationships are set up in a certain way that causes power, access to goods and services, and opportunities to be available unequally based on race. We will talk more about this. We have a picture on the next slide that will elaborate on this. Ms. Hyde, can you forward to the next slide, please? So as you can see here, we've got a lot going on the outside here. We've got housing, criminal justice, public health issues, education, and finance. In the middle, I want everyone to take note to the layers of systems, of policies, of ways of relating to each other that contribute to structural racism. So on a systemic level at the top, there are ongoing racial inequalities that are maintained by society. The ongoing effects of slavery, Jim Crow laws, attempts to alter voting, access to voting, and other things that we see on a governmental institution policy level that contributes to inequality. On an institutional level, there's discrimination policies and practices. On an interpersonal level, which is where I think many of us experience these types of things, there are biases, prejudice, discrimination, oftentimes between individuals through direct and indirect words and actions. Lastly, many of these beliefs are internalized, and this is very important because all of these negative messages that are sent down from the system, from the institution, from the interpersonal level are internalized. We start to ponder and somewhat believe these negative messages that we receive about self. There are criminal justice policies that arrest and incarcerate persons of color at disproportionate rates. Persons of color experience physical injury and psychological trauma at very high rates. Also, we are oftentimes targeted by marketing of unhealthy substances. We oftentimes have inadequate access to high quality healthcare. And there is a place in where we have some personal control in this, and that relates to the coping mechanisms that we use. And it is important to note that sometimes we engage in healthy coping behaviors, and sometimes we engage in unhealthy coping behaviors. I'm certainly looking forward to hearing from folks and offering some ideas myself on some of the more healthy coping uh, behaviors that are available to us. Can you move on to the next slide, please? So why is this conversation of COVID-19, adolescence, and why is it important? It's important because individuals are getting infected with COVID at a high rate, a much higher rate than others. Individuals are getting hospitalized at a much higher rate than others. Individuals are also dying at a much higher rate than others. And as you can see here in red, in the top left, the numbers that you see here are compared to white persons. So for example, you have about 1.5 times Black or African American people are contracting COVID compared to whites. Almost 4 times the number of African Americans are being hospitalized with COVID-19 compared to whites. Almost 3 times the number of African American people are dying of COVID-19 compared to whites. These numbers are similar to numbers seen in persons of Hispanic or Latino descent, and they are similar to persons of Asian descent, albeit a little bit lower. This data is from, I believe it's the most recent data, and it is taken from November 30th, and it's taken from the CDC.gov website. So race matters, and race matters because we are persons of color are getting and being hospitalized and dying from COVID. Hi, can you forward to the next slide, please? So as a result of what we are facing in COVID, during the COVID-19 pandemic, it's been shown that over 2/3 of Black youth are worried that they or a family member will be exposed to the COVID-19 virus. A similar percentage are also worried about the effect that COVID-19 may have on family finances. Compounded by recent race-related stressors and trauma as a result of police brutality on Black Americans and Black communities. Increased stress is also intensified by the social distancing measures that have been put in place as a result of managing COVID-19. And we are all very much aware of how much this has disrupted our daily routines and has led to reductions in contact with relatives, peers, adults, role models, teachers, and other of those who support our development. Ms. High, can you forward to the next slide, the next and last slide, please? One of the early things that I think many of us noted about this COVID-19 pandemic is that it certainly challenged us in a lot of ways, but it activated the human spirit. It activated us to identify ways where we can continue to thrive, where we can continue to live our lives and function and grow as a result. Our way of lives have changed. Yes, they have changed, but there are many ways where they have changed for the better. Advances in science, advances in a workplace have been pushed forth as a result of responding to the COVID-19 pandemic. So the rest of today's presentation, we hope to really highlight ways in which young adults can continue to thrive and grow and develop in this context of the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as the pandemic of structural racism. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Dr. London. Thank you so much for that insightful presentation. We just have a few questions that we would like to ask you. So the first question that we have is, what have you heard from your clients over the last few months? Has there been any common trends or common concerns?
Oh, certainly. Before responding to that, I just want to say, just put myself into a little bit of a context for you, Kasai and Kendall. Currently, I work in a community health center environment in where we provide outpatient mental health and substance use counseling, as well as psychiatric services, oftentimes medication management services. We also have a school-based program of which I am the clinical director. So with those two worlds that I function in, I certainly do see quite a bit and hear a lot of stories of how children and youth are being impacted and how they've been in the last couple of months.
How can youth and young adults cope while attending school virtually or in the hybrid model?
Well, there's been a lot of struggles with transitioning to the remote learning environment, as I mentioned earlier. One of the biggest challenges that we've seen, however, is that children struggling to transition to this cyber school environment. One of the issues is that pre-existing diagnoses that are common in children, such as ADHD, that's attention deficit and hyperactivity disorder, and it contributes to challenges in young children and adults' ability to focus, to attend, and to kind of delay gratifying impulses. So these children are oftentimes being asked to sit in front of a monitor for 45-minute periods throughout the day, which has been always a challenge, oftentimes in the school setting, and now they are being asked to do this at home. To be honest, some children have been able to make that transition successfully, and it has led to a positive impact on their academics, whereas some children have been unable to make that transition. It seems like one of the moderators is the role of parental involvement or support. And earlier we did reference that some children have parents who are in the home with them and can offer that support, that guidance, those reminders to stay connected with the learning environment, where some children do not. On another note, children with another common diagnosis of oppositional defiant disorder, I've heard parents being amazed by the decrease in behavioral problems that their child is having. So another experience is that as children are being removed from the school setting and um, doing their academic learning in school, in their homes, there are less exhibitions of behavioral problems. And I hear that that is experienced positively, certainly by parents. Um, I wish that the children and youth were able to identify as positively with that as parents. But that's something that we're still working on.
How can,
Other
sorry.
stories that I've heard include sudden death of friends and family, uh, loss of loved ones secondary to COVID is oftentimes sudden, rapid, and expected. Um, Social distancing practices also disrupts families' abilities to cope and grieve. In the past, we would have in-person funerals, um, after passes where we would gather in one's home and eat food and get together. Those types of rituals that offered a sense of safety and support and grieving and doing this in a shared way has been compromised significantly, and individuals are oftentimes left to grieve. Developmentally, youth are asking for more space, more privacy, more quiet. In many cases, the home is filled. Many children that I work with and youth that I work with reside in homes with space that has difficulty in accommodating multiple people. So the shift that has been made and where children are learning in a home and doing everything in the home has created some challenges to face in privacy that's certainly necessary for optimal child physical and social and emotional development.
How can we as youth and young adults maintain social connections during this time?
Well, I would hope that almost a year into the pandemic that we have made this adjustment to maintain social connections. Um, so I want to speak to historically and kind of tie my response to this question to some of the ways that persons of color have historically remained connected and have been able to bear through. And African Americans in particular have a long history of relying on spiritual sources of support, faith-based communities where we might worship together has also been compromised. So it's really important to take time throughout one's week to put in a phone call or a video chat with a friend and or family members, and doing that as much as possible. Becoming involved in various social media groups, or reaching out to one's local YMCA and to see what other types of organizations are doing to provide opportunities for adolescents. Lastly, joining an organization such as Peace that's dedicated to uplifting community youth is certainly something that I wish all youth had access to. So I certainly commend this work and commend this organization. Lastly, being proactive and becoming engaged in solutions to problems that youth and young adults are seeing today is a great way to not only become socially connected, but also to sharpen and build on some of those leadership skills that we talked about earlier. There's opportunity, remember, there's opportunity that comes about with the challenges that we are faced with as a result of the pandemic. It really is a function of how we respond. And it's important for me to say this. Communities of color have had a difficult time in this country. We have used our resources to navigate those difficult times, and we should continue to reach back on our history of resilience, our history of strength within our forefathers and foremothers, to continue to be able to thrive through this pandemic.
What are some recommendations that you can provide to students who are trying to excel in their academics and in their career during these times, just because we don't have those same resources that we would have if we were in person?
A really, 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 really timely question. So persevering in academics. Children and adolescents certainly face numerous challenges in doing that in these times. So I would like to start with boundary setting. Um, Boundary setting can come in numerous ways. We can think about boundary setting in terms of setting up a space in where a physical space where we can align and set up our workstations or our in-home school. Trying to find space where this can be set up in a large enough space where someone has the privacy, has the quiet that's needed to really attend to what's going on in the cyber environment. Um, Oftentimes children, I've heard stories in where children are being asked, for example, a teenage youth might be asked to kind of multitask And what that looks like is them being asked to attend to their own learning while they're in school, but also kind of make sure that their little brother or sister is also attending. Um, this is a function of the stress that's placed on families to continue to go to work, continue to support the family, the household financially, while um, having to continue to respond to learning in the remote environment. So in that type of situation, it would really behoove that parent and that older child to really sit down and talk about ways where that older child can have the boundaries to focus on their own on learning and education. Also, self-care is certainly important. It's important that you are, that children are practicing self-care consistently. Oftentimes after being inundated with images and messages that we do not matter, it's important to remind yourself that you do matter. Ways children and youth can do this are by engaging in affirming readings, affirming podcasts, art activities, making sure that the foods that we are eating are solid foods with nutritional value, making sure that we are engaging in activity, be it physical walking, exercise. In-home exercise has ballooned significantly. YouTube has a wealth of in-home personal trainers that individuals can take advantage of. There's an app that even prior to the pandemic was really helpful to find events. Um, Eventbrite is the app that I'm referring to. I would use it prior to the pandemic to identify a host of social, educational, family-related activities and events that are going on throughout the world. And since the pandemic, they have transitioned to hosting online events. So there are online dance classes, online yoga, online meditation um, events that are being scheduled multiple times a day, multiple days throughout the week. I think you can find something on Eventbrite to engage in self-care at any moment of the day. Eventbrite is just one of them. There are other resources like this and where online platforms offer opportunities for self. In addition, meditating, journaling, listening to music, um, sitting in quiet and being quiet and focusing on one's breathing, maybe while a candle is lit, ensuring that we're getting adequate sleep, unplugging from the social media, unplugging from the news media, picking up a new hobby, reading a book that you always wanted to read but didn't have the time for because we were on the run so much. Lastly, finding joy. With all of the negativity, African Americans have to be intentional about finding enjoyment. So, let's not forget to laugh and have fun. That might mean tuning into something humorous. There's nothing wrong with that. Dancing out to one's favorite song, playing board games, or engaging in video games that allow one to connect with others. Preferably in a healthy and nonviolent way, are things that I think children and adolescents would find enjoying.
I know you spoke briefly on this, but what are some mindfulness techniques to help combat negative thinking?
So I'm not sure if everyone knows what mindfulness is. It's certainly very common in today's vocabulary, which I'm so excited about. So mindfulness, what mindfulness is, so just so everyone is aware, it is a way of being with oneself, in where we are accepting non-judgmentally whatever happens in our experience. We're not judging it as good, and we're not judging it as bad. We're just accepting it as it is, and realizing that whatever feelings that are coming up for us as this thing is happening around us, that these feelings are not constant. They're there, they're temporary, and they'll go away. And then behind them, other feelings will come. And the only control that we have over that next moment, that next hour, that next day, that next week, is what we do in the here and now. So mindfulness is, it's a way of being with oneself, where we are accepting our whole experience, not trying to refrain from putting positive value on it or negative value on it, and trying to accept this experience as it is. One of the most common mindfulness practices that I see is called diaphragmatic breathing, or a body scan. I can explain a body scan. One can sit in a chair, fairly relaxed, upright, and take notice, turn one's attention to the places in where our bodies are making contact with the floor, with the chair that we might be sitting on, the contact that our back is making with the back of the chair, noticing signs within our bodies where we're feeling aches or tightness. Oftentimes, these are places where we might be unconsciously holding stress. We can engage in something called progressive muscle relaxation. We can tense parts of our body and then relax them. We could do that from the base of our feet all the way up to our neck. And that progressive tensing and relaxation oftentimes leads us to a sense of calmness and acceptance, as if nothing really matters. And oftentimes individuals have said to me, wow, I feel like I'm floating on air, or I'm like really in the zone. And individuals feel like, wow, like nothing can kind of take me out of this.
Thank you so much, Dr. London, for taking time out of your day to speak with us and taking the time and effort you took to share your thoughts and experiences on how to cope with COVID. I know that we can all definitely use your tips and advice for this year.
Thank you, Kendall. It was a pleasure participating in this, and I'm really hoping that we do have some time for any questions from the audience.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. London. So if anyone has any questions, they can drop it in the chat and we will read it to him.
Okay,
Yep. Great.
thank you so much. We certainly appreciate each and every one of you for just being here, being present with us today. We certainly appreciate the mindfulness techniques, and just sort of the breathing is definitely something that is very useful for all of us to take home. We will share with the group Dr. London's information so that we can get in contact with him at a later date and time. We are always available. You can reach us via email. You all have our email information, or any of our contact information, and so we can provide that in the chat as well. Certainly, we definitely, Alexis just posted it in the chat. Dr. London, you may post any information that you'd like in the chat as well. But we thank you again so very much for your time today. Are there any last minute words from anyone?
Just want to share with everybody, if you are interested, and we have a number of them, a number of comments and folks, Dr. London, that want to get in contact with you, and then want to send to our co-host Kendall and Kasai. Extraordinary job. Sometimes you're moderating and they don't get to see the chat. So everybody really applauded you all for doing such a great time. And in this time, it's awesome to have youth that, despite adversities, are stepping up to kind of lead the discussion with this. But for those that are interested in reaching Dr. London, we're going to ask if you would email us, and we'll put the email in the chat again. Would you just send a quick email? It's Pe2ac-org@yahoo.com. If you would just email us, you could say your name. The subject line could be talk series, lecture series, or coping with COVID. If you email us, then we'll be able to send you, and it'll allow us, honestly, to just be transparent, to track who was here, keep you in a part of our group. And then and I thank you, Dr. London, he's put his information out there, but if you're interested, or you give us some comments, some feedback, we appreciate. But if you're interested in connecting with him, send us your email here, so that we will make sure everybody that was on this chat with us will be connected for the next one. We're doing a number of them this month, a variety of topics as we prepare for our annual event, which will be virtual this summer. All that information forthcoming. But we thank you. Thank you so much for this evening.
Also,
My pleasure.
There's two questions in the chat that I wanted to ask you, Dr. London. So the first question is from Mecca. What kind of advice can you fever and aren't allowed outside during this pandemic?
Well, without knowing why they're not allowed outside, what first comes to my mind is to find something within the house that is new, interesting, challenging. One of the common things that I think about is when I was a child, I would go into my room or go around my house and find things that kind of pique my curiosity, and pick it up and look at it, and try to figure it out, or make sense of it. That's my suggestion. Try to make sense of your world around you. Try to make sense of why things are the way they are. So for this person who's struggling and who can't get outside and who has cabin fever, I certainly understand how frustrated it must be to not go outside. But try to think about the reasons. Perhaps there's safety concerns that someone is making this decision for them to ensure their safety. Really connect with that, as opposed to what I'm not being able to do, and maybe focus on the purpose of the restriction.
Thank you. And this question is for both Peace and Dr. London. Do you all have any resources for teens to reach out for support?
Awesome. We just put we put our website there. Allow us, I'm going to say 24 to 48 hours to compile. Let's say by by Monday, we'll gather resources that we have, be able to pull this information here. We'll make that available to you either through email with your contact. We'll develop a group and also provide that at our website, on our website. Thank you, Kasai.
I also see
We lost you. Can't hear you.
I also see a wonderful response to the question by Taryn Flood. They offered an idea to create a digital vision board and to exercise. Thank you, Taryn, for those wonderful suggestions.
So Mrs. Hyde,
Hey,
we want to
yes.
thank you all.
Thank you all yet again, once again, for your time, energy, and effort today. We thank you so much. And in respect for everyone's time, we'd like to end the segment. Stay tuned. There's more to come. Stay tuned to Facebook, Instagram, email, any way that we can communicate with you, any way that we're accessing each and every one of you today. But just stay connected. Stay tuned for more information. Thank you so very much. We appreciate your time.
Stay safe. Wear your mask. Wash your hands. Social distance. Be safe,
Absolutely.
everyone.
Continue to
Be safe.
thrive.
Yes.
Continue to thrive.
Yes. Push through.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.